entertainment, current events, and Hollywood. Don't miss Creator to Creators, hosted by the filmmaker Meosha Bean, known for the Shudder hit documentary Horror Noir and the acclaimed film Anatomy of an Anti-Hero, Redemption. This show features interviews with filmmakers and creatives from around the globe. Join the fun with guest celebrities and gain valuable insights. Subscribe now and follow Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Hi, I'm Segun Akinola.
Welcome. What a beautiful name, by the way. Do you know what your name means?
I do. It means victory in Yoruba, which is the
Wow.
Nigerian tribe that my family are from.
Amazing. Wow. I really think there's something about I think names are very important. Like if you and my name is Meosha,
Yeah.
and it means, vigorous, nonstop moving, and that's literally my life. I'm always somewhere.
Yeah.
So I really feel like it's something about names, and I think that's beautiful. I love that. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Like I like to go back. I always say the beginning kind of charts our trajectory and where we're going and heading in life. Like the small things that we pick up, our little habits kind of follow us as we become adults. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and how you got into, getting into music and composing where you are now.
Yeah, it's funny because really for me, this all starts with my dad coming home one day with a keyboard and saying, "Do you want to learn piano?" And I was really young at this point, probably about 5 years old. And I said yes. And I started to learn piano, and it was all like classical piano. But it's only very recently, I think in the last probably 9 months, I've actually questioned my parents about this and said, why did you come home with a keyboard? And as it turns out, they just caught on to the fact that I was quite responsive to music. And it's quite interesting for me now because my daughter's about 2.5, and it's interesting seeing her, and she's also extremely responsive to music and has always been. So now I'm like, okay, this kind of makes sense to me now how my parents must have been feeling. So yeah, my dad came home with a keyboard, said, "Do you want to learn piano?" And I said yes, and started learning from there really. And even though that was very much on the classical route, my upbringing musically has been really, really wide because I grew up in church, which was kind of like, I don't know, Christian rock is probably the best way I can put it. Like a couple of guitars, bass guitar, drums with a piano, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then at home, my dad came to the UK in the 80s, so there was a lot of 80s music.
Love that.
My mum was bringing all the Nigerian stuff that she was listening to. My sisters were really into hip hop and R&B. So for me, it was just a cacophony of different sounds and different styles, and that was just normal. Everyone was bringing something different, and that basically continued even when I was old. I started kind of learning music at school and everything. I was learning about Indian ragas, and I was learning
Nice.
about Latin music and classical and all sorts. And all of that is really, really important to everything that I do now
Yeah.
as well. So it's a very rich musical upbringing.
That's beautiful. Did you was there like a particular movie or that you watched and you listen to the soundtrack and you're like, I want to do that. Like it just something hit you and you're like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of knew that I wanted to do something musical from about the age of 12, something like that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, my sister was really important in this because I was looking at like engineering and physics and all sorts of different things. And I remember that I was like I was thinking about careers, and I wrote a list, and I left the room, and I came back, and my sister had written at the bottom, "Follow your heart." She probably doesn't remember this
Oh my
actually. I should
gosh, that
remind
is
her.
so
Um,
sweet.
and
I
it
love
was like in
that.
that moment, I just knew it was music, and it was funny because up to that point, I did not want to do music. I had zero interest in it whatsoever. Um, but it just, I knew in that moment, and it kind of just set me on the trajectory for thinking about music and what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
I knew it was something in studios, and I wanted to work with artists. And initially, I wanted to be a record producer. I was really into Quincy
Nice.
Jones, Bruce
Ah.
Mardin, Naisif, the kind of arranger producers. So I was already in that frame of mind, working in
Yeah.
studios, working with artists, working with a recorded medium as well, which is quite important. But I was about, what film? I watched Transformers once
Mm.
when I think like nothing was on TV, or my sister's TV wasn't working, watching DVDs or something. And I can't tell you what it was specifically about that film because I'd heard film scores before. I'd played some in like my school band, that kind of thing. But something about that film in that moment at that time just hit me and resonated with me. And it was like the world of scoring just came alive. And from that point onwards, basically everything changed. And my love of film grew. And I think that's it, that I've always read a lot. Like I read a lot as a
Oh,
child and was always really
beautiful.
into thrillers, that kind of thing. And I was really into music, and it just kind of came together, this whole thing of storytelling through music, and I
Mm.
started going to the cinema more and whatnot. So I think it all added up, and so yeah, it came alive in that film, and from that point onwards, I just basically researched everything that I possibly could about music in films, and who are these people who write this music in films, and how does it work, and yeah, it hasn't stopped since then,
Oh, I
pretty
love
much.
that. Would you say that you found your purpose?
100%, 100%, because I think that everything that I everything that I loved about being a record producer for me is absolutely directly applicable to being a film and TV composer.
Oh,
It's
beautiful.
just that I have a bigger canvas, because rather than working with one artist who might be in one genre or on one record or anything like that, actually I get to work on a lot of different stories, and different stories require different things musically.
Right.
And this is where the rich musical upbringing becomes important, because one day it's something orchestral, another day it's something that's not orchestral.
Right.
The day after that is something that mixes them. The day after that, I'm leaning on all the stuff that I learned in percussion ensembles with Latin rhythms. Uh, and then the next day, I'm doing something completely different. So it
Love
just
that.
it just brings everything together. It definitely for me is just, yeah, the perfect thing.
Wow. I think that's amazing. I think a lot of people, are going through life. I think it's a beautiful thing when one finds their purpose, like the reason what we're here for. I think a lot of
Yeah,
times throughout the journey, people are just kind of, I don't know, just existing.
yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
there's it's something when you know that it's like, oh, I have this purpose and I know what I'm here for. I know what I'm here to do. I think
Yeah,
and I think sometimes the purpose can change over time, but
yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's a beautiful thing. Um, so how did you kind of get into it? I mean, like how does one find themselves in as a composer? Like that's amazing, by the way. And your resume is
It's
impeccable.
Oh, thank you. It's a really good question, and I find that the longer I do this, the more difficult it is to answer anything like this.
You're like, I
It's
met a
kind of
guy
easier
and
when
I
you're,
joined the Illuminati. I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. Here's the secret passage. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the the longer I do this, the think that I think it ends up for me being about, I mean, for each person, their story and their background and what it is and how that influences them. And
Mhm.
so for me, yes, that upbringing where I had all of these different musical influences is so important to my understanding of music and to my idea of the kind of composer that I want to be and the kind of music I like and the kind of projects I like and stories I like and so forth. And so I think that part of it is about being you. But if I could dissect that a little bit more, that I would say it's about, you know, for me, my story and my upbringing, and I guess being true to that because there are certain things that I like. There are certain musical combinations that I like. There are certain rhythms that I gravitate towards. Even when I try and do something different, there's always going to be something that is specific to my own personal journey
Right.
musically and in life as well, right? We all
Hmm.
experience lots of different things in life, and that feeds into all of this. So I think that's definitely part of it. Um, and in terms of how do you break in, definitely being very determined helps a lot. Knocking on doors and being tenacious and understanding that it really is important. What you know is important and who you know is important, because
Right.
if you don't know anything but you know the right people, that you kind of get found out eventually. But equally, if you know all of the things you need to know but you don't know people, then you'll never get the opportunity to actually learn. And this is a journey, like every single school teaches me something different, just like every year in life teaches me something different. So it's
Yeah.
really about it's really about that journey and meeting people, trying lots of different things, um, and enjoying the ride as well. It's not a short journey. It's not a sprint. It's definitely a marathon.
Absolutely. I love that. Enjoy the journey. It's that's exactly what it is. It's I think that's the thing about life and doing what you love to do is you put that intention out there and but you also just enjoy the moments, like be in the now because these are so many there's fleeting moments. I've been in so many amazing rooms in my career, you know, pitching for Fox or being with a Chris Brown or whatever, and just thinking like, because we're always on the go of the next project, the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's like literally how we live our lives because it's so fast. But it's really,
yeah,
like you said, enjoying that. It's I think that's a beautiful thing that you have to take time to really process that. Like, yeah, I did that. That's pretty awesome. Pat yourself on the back, you know?
yeah, exactly. Because yeah, you're exactly right. Right, life passes us by really, really quickly, and we have to think about what wherever we're doing right now and
Yeah,
what's next and what's after that as well. So I think having a good balance between being present and also looking ahead is really, really important. So
ab-
that I don't miss life as it passes us
as
by.
it goes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Tell me, so what was one of like your most mm, memorable projects that you've like also challenging, but something that actually kind of expanded you and made you grow?
Oh, that is a very good question. Um, that is a very good question, and harder than I thought it was going to be when you started as well.
Sorry.
Uh,
Sorry, I'm not trying to be Oprah, but sometimes I get really
no, no,
deep.
no, no. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, there have been a few. I think it's nice to look back and to see the kind of progression along my career and to see what some key moments have been. Definitely a big one for me was working on the British sci-fi show Doctor Who, because
Yeah.
that was a show which it has an extremely long history. There was the 60th anniversary
Wow.
very, very recently. So it's also a very unique show because you have a a lead character who regenerates, and so they change, and some aspects of the show change, and there's a theme that's been around for 60 years, so
Yeah.
it's not really like anything else. Plus, it's a lot of music and a big turnaround, and all of those kind of things. So for me, that was definitely something, because when I came onto the show, the idea was to change the music and move in a different direction. And so
Mm.
I was coming in with the kind of the weight of history, but also the responsibility of doing something different and being creative and trying to push boundaries and try different things. So that was definitely something great to work on. The people behind it were fantastic, and
Oh,
it
lovely.
was a real
Lovely.
joy to work with them, because we tried lots of different things, from a James Bond episode to an episode where I was like making sounds from the extractor fan in my kitchen and my washing machine and my creaky
Amazing.
chair, to an episode where I worked with incredible Indian musicians as well.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
just, there was so much that we did on that, and I have a lot of great memories from being in the studio with wonderful people as well. So that's definitely one of them. Along with I did Apple's film 9/11 inside the President's War Room,
Wow.
which was
Wow.
to talk about responsibility. I felt a great deal of responsibility.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Obviously, tackling a very difficult moment in history, and being a Brit coming into it as well, that was really important. So one thing was definitely trying to understand things from an American perspective as well, and understand um, the national difficulty and grief and everything that came with it as well. So
Yeah.
that was quite an important
That's
for me.
beautiful. That's beautiful. I just were like, and how, like, what's your process when you get something that comes to your desk, like a project? Like, what's your first, what do you do? Kind of walk me through that. Like, I'm just so curious of your world.
Yeah. The first thing is usually reading the script.
Hmm.
I generally get onto projects reasonably early, so I'll
Okay.
generally read the script and then have a discussion with the director and the producers about the music and where they're at, any ideas that they have, the ideas that I have. And essentially, at that point, all I'm trying to do is get to the heart of the story. What
Right.
is the what is the beating heart of it? What's the thing that keeps it ticking, particularly emotionally as well? So
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
it might be that it's actually a story about loss and life, or birth, or new beginnings, or whatever it might be. And then what I'll try and do is figure out musical themes that work with story elements. So that might be that a character needs a theme, or it might be that there's again, it might be something about friendship, and so we'll have a friendship theme rather than specifically one character. But whatever the key elements are, and then I'll just start writing, even if they haven't started shooting or anything. I'll just start writing, and I
Hmm.
find that in that process, we usually always get to the core of what we're aiming towards, and it's really helpful to have an opportunity to start to figure out what the music isn't going to be as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always really really useful, and we usually come up with something that then goes into the edit. So when they start editing, they've got some of my work as well, and that can go in, and we're kind of playing around and toying with ideas from the very very beginning, and then they're obviously editing, and they get to a point where actually then I kind of start work properly. But by that point, we've figured a lot of things out, and we've been talking, and some things will have changed and grown and moved, but that initial work is always really really useful and really important, and
Nice.
it's never wasted in my experience.
I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I just never, because I love, I think score is so important, like for the audience to, it just, it sends us there, like emotionally, it just,
Mm.
when I watched Fences, I mean, the score was just, Oh my gosh, it's like
Yeah.
it's a big thing. So do you ever feel like, because I'm sure you have deadlines that you deal with, right? Like, oh my gosh, I have to get this done. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's all of that pressure. Like, how do you deal with all that? Like, I mean, you're a pro at this point, but like I'm sure at the beginning it was a lot to take in. I don't know.
Yeah. Organization is definitely part of it for me, being as organized as possible.
Yeah.
Just to have a framework, because things will always change, things will always go out the window and everything, and
Hmm.
that's the nature of storytelling and filmmaking and being collaborative and working in a team. But at least we have a starting point. And I think the other part of it is I'm really big on the idea of the score being cohesive. Whether you
Yes.
have a melodic theme or not, whether you have a
Hmm.
really, really memorable melodic theme or not, I
Yeah.
really like the idea of a score being cohesive. That's one of the things that's quite important to me in my work. So I, to be cohesive inherently means that certain things need to be able to work in more than one place. And that's part of it as well, understanding that, okay, well, this thing needs to work in a number of different ways so that as a character develops, it can develop, or as an element of the story develops, it can develop. So by the time we get to the end of the film, it's a particular theme or musical idea will still be around, but it will be in a slightly different form or different way, or different instruments or whatever it might be. But that's also part of it, that all of that early work in
Yeah.
figuring out themes and the sound world, key musical ideas is really helpful and really useful. And then getting into the craft of it, particularly when there's a lot to do and there's a lot to get through, and you've had feedback and changes need to be made and everything.
Nice.
And then finally, it's experience, really, just knowing that you've gotten through tight
Yeah.
times before, and so you'll get through it again.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I have a fun question for you. If you could be managed by any composer, like if you can sit under someone, living or dead, who would it be and why? For at least a year and just
Oh,
absorb just all of their things.
that is a really good question. That is a really good question. I know you said I know you said composer, but can I give a slightly different answer?
Sure, sure.
Because
Go
the
for
person
it.
that I would have loved to have just observed for a year would still be Quincy Jones. Um,
Really? Really? Huh.
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
absolutely, absolutely. Because
I guess I don't really know his like resume. I know he did, Michael Jackson among a lot of people, but I don't
yeah,
really know his like resume much.
yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that he also did film scores. Like he did the original Italian Job, The
Oh,
Color
nice.
Purple, like actually quite a lot. And for me, he was just such a big influence musically at that point when I was really into the kind of production side of things, but I was then discovering film and then
Hmm.
realized, oh, actually, he was composing. That was amazing, and particularly because he just seemed to transcend different styles and genres and different people, but you could always pick up on the musical identity.
Yeah.
And even now I'll go back and listen to like his early stuff and listen to um, all sorts of different albums he's worked on, either as a producer or whether they're his own works, and you just hear all those musical ingredients. And that was a all of those things were really important to me when I was starting to really analyze music, try and learn about
Mm.
it, and
Hmm.
understand how I could basically bring my ideas to life. And all of those things are really important even now, even in the world of scoring. At the end of the day, music is just music. It's
Yeah.
not, it's just music. It, my kind of viewpoint is it's all kind of the same. I mean, obviously it's different and exciting and people do different things, but
Hmm.
ultimately it's all music. So
Right.
something that you learn in one area can be exciting and useful in a completely different area. You can get influences from all sorts of places, which is why
Nice.
I still listen to a lot of music. My day almost starts with listening to music that is
I
completely
love
different to what
that.
I'm writing on, so I can just keep growing and learning and be influenced by lots of different artists.
That's amazing. I love that. I have another fun question. There's no wrong answer, but the three levels of influence: money, power, and respect. And if you could choose one of those things, which one would you choose and why?
Uh, Definitely respect.
Ah,
Definitely respect.
nice. Nice.
Uh, I think maybe it's just something about value to me, but yeah, I think that in an industry like this, it's really difficult to actually make it break in. It's difficult to then survive. It's difficult to then kind of keep moving up as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
inherently, the level and quality of work is amazing. And as you were saying earlier, we have deadlines. So to kind of produce the level of work at the top of the game consistently and to not miss a beat is really, really, really hard. So I think if you're able to work in that kind of top 10% and also produce work which, particularly by your peers, is respected, that means you're doing something right. And it'd be pretty cool to be part of that group.
I love that. Absolutely. Um, you know, I always think, as even myself, I think as anyone in this industry, it's an up and down. There's ebbs and flows, right? It's never
Yeah,
like, smooth sailing. I always say that this business is definitely not for the faint of heart. And you have to love what you do at the end of the day. But what keeps you going in tough times?
that is a very, very good question. I think it's what you said that your love for it has to almost surpass understanding, reason, and anything sensible, because
Right.
there are going to be really difficult times. Whether that's because you've gone up for a job, you've been rejected. You've gone up for another one, you've been rejected. You've gone up for another one, you've been rejected. You're having a difficult time on the current job that you're on. You're trying to
Yeah.
juggle all of that with life and everything that's happening. That there's so many ways in which it can be testing and difficult.
Mm,
But what's really interesting to me is that even if things are difficult, there'll be a conversation about some film that's coming up or TV series or something, and it's the excitement. It's that kind of initial spark of excitement, and that just never fades or dies away. And so I think for me, that is the, I guess, prevailing flame which keeps burning. So that even when it's doused out with water, it still kind of comes back to life. Even if I'm like, I'm really tired, it just comes back to life because I just love it. That is honestly the answer. I literally
yeah.
love this. I love storytelling through
Mm,
music. That's the thing for me. And like having a character doing one thing and this situation happens and having to tell that story through music, I just love it. I love stories and I love music and I love the range of different projects to get to work on and different music, but
yeah.
still trying to very much make sure that everything comes from my voice. So yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, it's that almost childlike spark and enthusiasm which just doesn't die away, which yeah keeps me going for sure.
I love that. I just kind of I want to touch on a little bit what you said earlier at the beginning about, like, you grew up in church and so I also was a PK kid, a preacher's kid. So
Yeah.
definitely has a big part of it's a part of my life for sure. But my question, I love asking every guest this, you get, once your life is over and you get to the pearly gates, and what do you want God to say about you and the things that you've done on earth?
Oh, the deepest one yet. I think really, really, if I can get a good job, I would be very, very, very happy. very, very
I
rare.
love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. What are you working on right now? Is there anything that you're working on that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've just finished a film called The Bayou, which is a thriller suspense film
Ooh,
from some of the same people behind 47 Meters Down. So
love that
that's been a lot
movie.
of fun. It's
That's good.
been basically constant. Are they going to die? Are they going to die? Are they going to die? Who's still surviving? So it's really like edge of your seat viewing, and that's been really fun.
Oh, when is that? Is that this year, next year, maybe?
I think it's out later this year, but I can't tell you where, mainly because I don't know. I don't actually know where and when, but
Right.
I think it's this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, definitely keep an eye out for that. That's awesome. Where can people find you on social media to follow everything you have going on?
Yeah, best place is Instagram. Segun Akinola Composer is my handle. That's where, I mean, I'm also on Facebook as well. But either of those two, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, this was lovely. I feel like I feel like there was this was a really fun conversation. I got to learn a lot about you, and I just really enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on. It's really
It's
lovely.
been a real pleasure talking to you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Come back anytime. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.